South Africa has been criticised for its reliance on coal. The country is in the top 20 of the world's biggest sources of greenhouse gases. A new study by Blended Finance Taskforce and the Centre for Sustainability Transitions at Stellenbosch University says it will cost South Africa almost 4 trillion rand over the next 3 decades to go green. For more on this, I'm joined by Mark Swilling, a Professor of Sustainable Development at Stellenbosch University. Professor, the future is green, 250 billion greenbacks. Just how important is it for us to go green?
Well, if we are serious about decarbonizing the South African economy in order to align with where the rest of the world is going, then we're going to have to invest heavily in new generation, as well as the transmission grid, as well as the closure of the coal mines by 2040. And we've calculated that out at $250 billion or nearly 4 billion rand. But when you think about what it's going to cost, you must understand this as investment which stimulates economic development and economic growth. So you mustn't see it as an expense that somehow we can't afford. When it comes to this kind of work, calculating what needs to be invested is a very positive thing to look at.
Well, what are some of those other elements that go into that 4 trillion rand amount, or the 4 trillion rand projection?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
So what are some of the elements that go into that projection of 4 trillion rand?
Okay, about half of it goes into constructing solar and wind farms, as well as backup systems, which is battery and gas. Well, actually, a bit more than half of it. We have to be building between 5 and 6 gigawatts of renewable energy per annum. We need 10 within the next 2 years if we want to stop load shedding. So if you calculate out 5 to 6 gigawatts per annum through to 2050, that basically gets you to roughly 125, 130 billion dollars through to 2050. But you're going to need about 60 billion for backup, half of it for battery backup, and another half for the gas backup, which is necessary because gas is very flexible, as is batteries. But you're also going to need funding for the just transition, which is really about $10 billion through to 2050 for workers who are going to lose their jobs, communities that are going to get affected by coal closure, but also to support upstream industrialization. So we have massive amounts of manufacturing opportunities are going to open up for us as we make this transition. And we need to make sure that workers and communities are ready for that.
So obviously immense benefits to the environment, but what are the benefits to South Africa and its people?
The benefits on multiple levels. So basically, as we all know, we just have to look out of the window. The economy is suffering because we have load shedding. It costs about 1 billion rand a day when we get to stage 4 load shedding. So our current energy system is completely and utterly dysfunctional from the perspective of economic recovery. So if you want to fix our current system, you're not going to be able to fix the current coal-fired power stations. They're just too old and they're falling apart. You have to put new generation capacity onto the grid. It must be the cheapest and must be the quickest. Coal takes too long. Nuclear is too expensive. So what we have is solar and wind. And so what that means is we're setting up a new energy generation system to boost the economic recovery. Without it, we simply will not be able to reduce unemployment, poverty, and also inequality.
So obviously there's a lot of sun around, which puts solar into perspective. Talk to us about wind energy and how much that will contribute to the process of us going green.
Which energy? Wind energy?
Correct.
Well, when we talk about renewables, we talk about wind energy and solar energy. Exactly how that breaks down into what proportions. We're talking about 5 or 6 gigawatts of renewable energy per annum. That's 5,000 megawatts. Exactly what the proportion of that is wind and solar is dependent on where we do the construction. So some parts of the country are really appropriate for wind with a little bit of solar, and other parts is more appropriate for solar and a little bit of wind. The Department of Environment has designated a set of renewable energy development zones around the country, I think about 11 of them, and those are being demarcated backed up by research from the CSIR as the best places to locate. But we haven't got a prioritization of which ones go first. So the obvious place to start is in Mpumalanga, because that's where the grid is strong, and that's where you can start off with quite a lot of solar, as well as wind on the escarpment.
Now, Professor, when we look at renewable energy in Kenya, which currently accounts for 73% of installed power, it's a huge amount. What lessons can be drawn for such countries as these on the African continent?
Well, renewable energy is growing fast on the African continent because it is increasingly affordable and because there is international finance available for renewables on the African continent. Africa has to energize in order to support the over 1 billion of people who are going through an economic transformation. But the total amount of installed generation capacity in Africa is equal to what you have in France, a small country. Wow. And so if Africa energizes using fossil fuels, none of the targets, climate targets that were agreed to in Paris in 2015 and subsequently will be achieved. So the whole world has an interest in making sure that Africa energizes using clean energy, or so-called clean energy. But if we do that, it's fantastic for Africa because we're going to need a lot of minerals. And Africa, especially South Africa, has a lot of the minerals that are required to build out the renewable energy infrastructures. So the South African mining has got a very, very bright future because of renewables. Unfortunately, the minister doesn't really see it that way. He thinks that he's defending coal, which is a dying industry.
Well, certainly a conversation we'd like to have on another day. Professor Mark Swilling of Stellenbosch University, thank you for your time this afternoon unpacking that issue around going green. And he says it costs us R1 billion a day when we're at stage 4 load shedding. And as he says it, let's go green.